So thanks so much for choosing this talk, and let's talk about how personalised and inclusive family support is evolving for leading employers. We promised that we would look at what parents and carers are looking for, and I've got some new research to share with you. And if you want to delve into that a little bit deeper, my colleagues are on stand 42, and they've got a QR code that you can get to download the research, so you can get more of that. We said that we'd talk about the ROI, got to talk about that, and we will do, and there's some interesting data on that. And that we'd talk about the rising generation and their different expectations, which I think is becoming really clear as a need and a pressing topic. Bright Horizons, you may have heard of us. If you haven't heard of us, we already work with over 400 organisations in the UK, 1,300 globally. So we work with most of the leading employers. Sometimes people know the brand because we have 300 community nurseries. So some people have used Bright Horizons childcare or workplace nurseries. But a lot of what we do, the other side of the business, is the kind of employer services. Things like our Work and Family Space portal that provides access to life-stage-based content, backup care, so when care falls over on a given day, having the solutions to put that in place, workplace nurseries or partnerships with community nurseries for employers, the parental leave toolkit that handholds individuals and managers through the parent transition, and other coaching and that sort of thing through work and family is this kind of golden thread that runs through everything. It's about combining work and family most effectively, because increasingly people expect to have it all. And certainly the under 35s, this is a piece from our latest research, the Work and Family Snapshot. This year we had over 1,750 of our clients' employees take part. We do a couple of big pieces of research every year. One is the Modern Families Index, that's with a random UK population. This one is with our clients' employees. So these are people that are already working for employers that get it and are providing services. Now this comes out of some statements that we gave people. Do you agree or disagree? The whole raft of statements. And this one got some interesting attention, particularly from the 18 to 34s. Last year, you can see the data there, 2022, two-thirds of the respondents were saying that family was a higher priority than before. And nearly 4 in 10, 39%, were saying that my career ambitions have now increased versus last year. This year, it's more balanced, the picture. So there's still a huge emphasis on family. Well over half are still saying family is more important than it was before. But 45% are saying my career ambitions have strengthened. So as we move away from that time of the pandemic, when family came so much into view, and we all started talking about family much more, career is coming back into the picture, and people are saying, I want it all. And it's sometimes helpful to draw on examples of organisations that are doing interesting practical things. So I've got a few examples of organisations that have recently put case study information out there. And one of them was the law firm Burgess Salmon, who spoke recently about what we do together. And one of the things there, Simone Riley, was that when people join the firm, even at the start of careers, they're asking about family-friendly policies. It's a decisive point. And actually, so the firm takes that, and beyond simply having the services in place, so people get already life stage content delivered to them through our platform, but the firm goes beyond that, and through their parents' network, they take from the dashboard of the service, they take the content that's proving most popular, and they amplify that again through their parents' network. Really interesting tip. It's about having services in place, but then leveraging them further, finding out what's popular, what's really hitting people's interest, and making sure that the employee resource groups that you have are able to take that and use it and amplify it. There's a rethink going on as well. So again, in the Work and Family Snapshot, the client employee data, over half of the under 35s and over half of the over 55s are saying yes to the statement that I'm thinking more about my overall direction and purpose than I was before. So there's a lot of that rethink still going on, and we need to think about who we're being as employers and what we're representing. And when we asked what would help you stay loyal to your employer, as people are having that rethink, these are all the things that came in somebody's top 5. We said, indicate your top 5 here. And you can see there's some interesting ones there. We've noticed, haven't we, that people are talking more about family at work now. It's much easier to ask for a certain level of flexibility. It's much easier to talk about what's going on at home. But actually, it's the practical benefits, and I think this is quite a key point for the leading employers that really want to be at the cutting edge. It's going beyond having conversations. It's actually having those things in place when somebody's care arrangements fall over. If you can have an emergency nanny rock up on somebody's doorstep, or you can have a carer to provide respite care for an adult dependent, or when somebody's coming out of hospital, those are the things that score top. The regular care and the backup care, both for children and also adult care featured in the list. So they are basically saying we want things that help us, not only with family, but that interface between family and work to keep the show on the road, because most people don't want to underperform at work, even though they're committed to family. Most people want to be more than 100% in both. So, what can we be as employers that supports that is the key. Now, I don't know how many of you saw Severance, the Apple TV series. I've been a bit hooked. Did anybody see that? So in Severance, the concept, which is quite spooky, was that people were willing to have a brain procedure done to separate their work and home life. So they came into work and they had no concept once they were in work of what was happening at home. And I reference that because in some ways, the way we used to act a few decades ago as employers was as if that was the ideal employee. The employee that, completely left family at home to the extent that it was not present in their day-to-day thinking. Well, I don't know, hands up here if you think it's much easier now to talk about family at work and to deal with family in working hours. Who thinks that family is kind of more present at work? Absolutely. So no longer are we asking people to completely disappear family and leave that at home. But we've also been talking recently about whether we stopped evolving as people when we sat down at desks, whether we've kind of gone backwards in the workplace, and stopped being sort of physically as healthy as we were. And I don't know, that's a moot point. But one thing that does seem to have really evolved in the way that employees and employers are interacting together is that evolution of recognizing the employee has life outside of work. And, there on the right, a little bit like that sort of Apple series Severance, the ideal employee perhaps used to be, perceived to be, the man with the briefcase who's in work and who has a nice little wife with an apron on at home and a couple of kids who are in the background and supporting, and that was kind of the support network. And then, of course, we began to wake up as employers and notice that's not at all how work works. So we have the man and the woman both coming into work with their briefcases, and then we realize, the children must be somewhere. That's when we got into childcare as employers. But then we started noticing some parents are solo, many families are same-sex, so they don't all look the same. Many families actually are made up of elder care responsibilities rather than childcare. And then, of course, there's the furry four-legged members of families that came into view. And, this has been this whole evolution, particularly in the last 5 years or so, but over decades from a long ago, well-forgotten time now, when the ideal worker either, left family completely behind, or family was there mainly to support that single career that took place in a family. Now, everything happens together, and employers at the leading edge of family-friendly, inclusive benefits are basically constantly looking for what is coming next. And pet care is one of those. So a lot of people got pets during lockdown. Anyone here get a pet during lockdown? Okay, a few. Maybe those who did are not here, you see, because they're at home looking after their pets. And one of the things that employers have led us to do, because we provide backup care, and for years that's been backup care for young children, and it's been backup care for adult dependents, can be partners, can be, parents, older relatives. A lot of employers have drawn bright horizons to evolve over that time. One of the recent evolutions is pet care. So you can now take a use case of backup care. So many employers would subsidize 20, maybe 30 days of care for an individual employee. You can now, if the employer is switching on the pet care, you can convert a day of backup care into a range of walking and pet sitting services. Interesting, huh? You can also convert a day of backup care into tutoring for older children, because employers began to notice that it's not just people with small children that are preoccupied and have kind of, juggling acts to do. It's actually people, all through that school age lifespan. So now you can convert a day of backup care into 4 sessions of virtual tutoring. And what really is interesting about this is that it takes a benefit like backup care that was originally envisaged as an absence management tool in a way, and 70% of people who've used backup care, again in our Work and Family Snapshot survey, said, yes, it helped me work on a day when I otherwise absolutely could not have worked because there was no other support in my network. That's true. But actually converting backup care into things like pet care and into things like virtual tutoring takes it into the well-being and engagement space. It takes it beyond absence management, beyond enabling people to be present, beyond productivity, into engagement, into well-being. And it's really interesting. So a couple of examples here. Tracy Ismay of Swiss Re, the reinsurance firm, talked about, they provide 20 days of backup care per employee. She talked about the importance of that so that you can cover elder care as well as childcare, because if you subsidize too few days, people are kind of playing granny off against the children in terms of using up that allowance. And we found that when we asked people what happens when you've used up your backup care days, 2/3 of people use their annual leave, of course, in order to be able to function. And annual leave's meant for well-being, it's meant for family as well, where whatever family means to people. So employers have been expanding the amount of backup care also to make sure that people aren't coming to the end of that. So that was, Tracy Ismay at Swiss Re was talking about that. She was also talking about the importance of virtual tutoring when she carried out a case study recently, but also highlighted the great feedback that had come from school holiday cover. So backup care isn't only an emergency cover, it's actually, and particularly with the cost of living crisis, people struggle. Who here has never struggled over a summer holiday if you happen to have children? I know I've certainly been there. And so you can make it something that can be planned ahead as well. So as an employer, we can keep thinking, family doesn't just mean one thing, and it doesn't only mean little tiny children, and it doesn't only mean when care falls over. It means throughout the year, what are the gaps? What are the pinch points? What are people asking for? And then when we ask people in the Work and Family Snapshot, because you have backup care available to you or you have employer-sponsored childcare available, what impacts does it have? And there's some pretty nice business case stats there in terms of return on investment. So the top line is people who'd used backup care. 79% saw a well-being impact for them. 78% saw a productivity impact. That's pretty nice. With the nursery, now you can have an employer sponsored workplace nursery, or you can have a partnership with a community nursery, because not every organization has the space to accommodate a nursery, for example. And so you can have a partnership with a local community nursery. And still, if you manage that in a certain way and have a good involvement with it, you can still operate it as a salary sacrifice scheme, which is wonderful because it saves employer NI, which you can plow back in, and it saves employee tax and NI. So it's a wonderful benefit in a cost of living crisis. And actually, when people were asked about the productivity and well-being benefits of that, it was 90+% across the board for things like well-being, productivity, and ease of working. And again, a couple of examples of clients that have recently spoken about this. It depends, as we've heard many times today. Your business case, your ROI, depends on what you're trying to achieve. So when we spoke with Fraser Nash Consulting, Val Hardy from there, talked about, for them, the test of whether something is worthwhile is, are we still, as they are, 17th in the Great Place to Work League? Yes, they are. And 100% of people who'd used backup care talked about not only as enabling them to work, but that it's helped them feel valued as an employee. So where we, as employers, act to address those practicalities of family life, we can get those rewards back in terms of people perceiving us well as an employer. And Amanda Weeks of the University of Surrey, who has a workplace nursery, talked about the academic recruitment having increased with the nursery being there because people see it as a cost-saving benefit and a great plus. So the point there is that it depends what we are trying to achieve as employers in terms of what we should measure. But if we're concerned about things like productivity and well-being, as I think most of us here are, then that appears to be touched by these practical things that go way beyond simply saying, let's have a culture where you can talk about family. Kind of comes to its limits at certain points. So stand 42, you can get a copy of or a digital copy to save the environment, of the Work and Family Snapshot. There are 5 key points. One is that employers reap the rewards of family-friendly benefits. The second is that 2/3 of people have a care breakdown in a given year. So as employers, there's some kind of motive to do something about that. That employers are catching up generally in the family-friendly conversation, so we need to keep innovating, keep pushing the boundaries and going the extra mile. That finally, the expectations, particularly of the younger generation, are changing. They want to have, prime career trajectories plus a great focus on family life, and a lot of people are having a career rethink, so we need to think about who we're being as employers to engage them. So that was really what I wanted to share. I think I've managed to leave a bit of time for questions. So if you have questions, I think Aidan's maybe got some on Slido.